For today's speech, I came across the quote from Walt Disney. Do what you do so well, they will come back to see it again and bring friends. His comment on customer service. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and guests. As I thought about that quote, I rolled back 32 years to one of the first and most memorable customer service moments of my career. I was a river guide on the Colorado back those years ago. And as such, we lived on the river. We had a base camp halfway down the route we went. We were a group of hard-working and hard-drinking individuals. On a day much like today, overcast, a little drizzle in the air, we take our boats up. This is before cell phones, so we're expecting to have 2 boats that will run down the river this Tuesday morning. Still feeling the pain from the night before, I'm laid out in the middle of the boat that I'll ultimately guide. And you can hear the bus, a 1950s vintage bus, rolling and clamoring down the road. As I looked to watch the crowd get off, there were 6. They looked like they were dressed to go to a country club social, not a paddle boat river ride, where you got to paddle. My boss comes over to me and says, "You're low man on the totem pole. You'll be running this trip." Now, to put this in perspective, I had just finished training. This will be my first solo trip down the Colorado. But he said, these folks are from the Sea Lazy U Ranch, which I already knew as I watched them bounce off the bus looking more like they're going to a country club party than what we're about to do. It's a 5-star dude ranch in Granby, Colorado. They're the most pompous bastards you'd ever meet. And I know what I'm in for today, thinking it's hell to be at the bottom. So I go through the basic commands, forward, back, right, left. Then I realize I better round up their jewelry, because they're all decked out with necklaces and bracelets. And so we round up their jewelry and I put it in the dry bag. We get out on the river. And the river, the Colorado at this point, is a pellucid river. Very clear, very slow moving. Nothing that would suggest the events that are going to unfold over the next few hours. When we get out there, I begin to give the commands so they get a feel for it. And it's as if I'm speaking a foreign language. They have no clue what manual labor is. They're 3 brothers, a lawyer, a doctor, and a businessman, and their wives. They're probably in their 30s or 40s, and I don't think they've ever seen manual labor in their lives. We get stuck on a sandbar. We have not moved 20 feet, and we're stuck. I'm hungover. This is miserable. I get out of the boat, drag us off the sandbar, and happen to look over at my friends, who are now rolling in laughter. And off we go. As I bark the commands, it is a foreign language. They just sort of sit there. Well, we get moving along, and all of a sudden I feel the boat picking up speed. And I realize I've screwed up. These folks were no help. I'm still drunk, and we're in trouble. Because we're approaching a 7-foot waterfall. And we're going to take this thing right down the middle. Not to the right or the left where you can just slip right around it. We're going dead center. So as we go, we're getting faster and faster. They have no clue about what's about to happen. All of a sudden, I watched the front end of the boat disappear. It goes, poof. Well, if you've ever been in a rubber raft that bends, you know what's going to happen next. I get catapulted out of the boat. And it is like an explosion. People, paddles, stuff everywhere. As I round everybody up, I get them back in the boat. And it's a fortunate place because there were no rocks. This was just a big pool it dumped into. If you're going to screw up, this was the place. I get them back in the boat. I pull into the first eddy. I tell them, I live on this river. I don't ever have to get back. You have dinner at 7. You will either start working or we will sit in this eddy until somebody comes and finds us. I don't care. But let me tell you this. You thought this waterfall was tough. We have one that's twice that size we have to navigate on the second half of the river. I laid back down. They hammered. And then finally, they said, we're ready. We will listen and do the best we can. So that's all I asked. And off we go. Now I figure I'm going to be fired here at lunch. And they tell my boss what has happened. Well, we go through lunch, no one says a word. We get in the boat and we finish out the trip. Uneventful, they do the best they can, which is fine, that's all I ever asked. We get to the end, I'm putting the stuff away, they're going off to the bus, but one brother comes back. He says, I have one question for you. Where was the second fall? I looked at him and said, I lied. Then, before he turned away, he looked at me and he said, you know, no one has ever talked to my brothers and our wives like you just did. So here is $50. Thank you for the experience. And that was my first introduction to customer service. With that,